16. The history of women's cricket. Learning objectives. 1. To understand gender equality. 2. To understand the history of women's cricket. Warm up. Look at the pictures given below and tell which posture is relevant to what in a cricket game. Rosalind Ferguson, 1953, is a former teacher, a freelance writer and editor with a wide range of reference books to her name. She is the author of the Penguin Rhyming Dictionary. She lives in Kent with her husband David and occupies her leisure time with walking, sailing, literature and music. The sport of cricket has a known history beginning in late 16th century. The history of women cricket can be traced back to a report in the Reading Mercury on 26 July 1745 and a match that took place between the villages of Bramley and Hambledon near Guildford in Surrey. Let's learn more about the history of women's cricket by reading the chapter written by Rosalind Ferguson. That's not cricket! This exclamation has entered the English language as an idiom, used when one person does something that another person considers to be unfair or unsportsmanlike. The implication is that cricket, traditionally called the game of gentlemen, sets the standard for fair play. Whether the players are professional sportsmen or villagers who got together for an informal match, they are expected to treat each other as gentlemen would, with honesty and respect. For many years, however, it was felt that the sport behaved very unfairly towards a group of people who make up half of the world's population, women. The Marylebone Cricket Club (MCC) in London, England, is widely considered to be the bastion of this sport. Founded in 1787, it revised the laws of a game that had been played in various forms of more than 200 years. These included the IBW rule, which had already been rewritten at least once before, and rules relating to the way the ball is bowled. The modern overarm bowling style was originally classed as a no ball. Membership of the MCC, however, was restricted to men until the closing years of the 20th century. Before the historic decision to admit female members in 1998, the only woman apart from domestic staff allowed to enter the club's pavilion at Lord's Cricket Ground had been Queen Elizabeth II. As the official patron of the club, she could hardly be refused admission. Meanwhile, cricket had been played with great enthusiasm by women since 18th century. An article in an English newspaper of July 1745 talks about a match played between 11 maids of Bramley and 11 maids Hambledon, all dressed in white. It goes on to make the admiring, if slightly ungrammatical, remark: the girls bowled, batted, ran and catched as well as most men could do in that game. Bramley and Hambledon are villages in southern England, and in its early years the women's sport was largely confined to this region. Players ranged in age from teenage girls to women in late middle age. Sometimes a team of single women would compete against their married counterparts. According to legend, it was a woman, Christina Wills, who pioneered round-arm bowling, which evolved into the now familiar overarm technique because her hand entangled in her skirts when she bowled underarm. Sadly, this legend has since been discredited, and the male cricketer Tom Walker is now hailed as the first round-arm bowler. By the late 19th century, the game was being played professionally in England by two touring teams known as the original English Lady Cricketers. Large crowds would come to watch them play. In the rather patronizing words of an 1890 cricket annual, as an exercise, cricket is probably not so severe as lawn tennis, and it is certainly not so dangerous as hunting or skating and if therefore the outcome of the present movement is to induce ladies more generally to play cricket, we shall consider that a good result has been attained. Little did these early female players know that it would be another 100 years before their successors gained full acceptance and recognition. The women's game soon spread to Australia and then to the other countries including New Zealand, South Africa, the West Indies, Denmark and the Netherlands, a young Tasmanian woman called Lily Paulette Harries, whose brother was a member of the state cricket team, founded the first Australian club for female cricketers in 1894. As captain, she led her team to many victories in her tragically short career. She died of tuberculosis at the age of 23 in 1897. By the mid-20th century, there were women's teams all over the world competing against one another in international matches. One of the most famous female cricketers of the modern era is Rachel Hay-Ho Flint. Born in 1939, she played for the England women's cricket team in 1960s and 1970s, captained by Hay-Ho Flint. The team won the first ever Women's Cricket World Cup in 1973. After retiring from active participation in the game, she devoted her time to writing, broadcasting and making speeches on the subject. In 1991, Hay-Ho Flint applied to join the NCC and was refused. Her skill and achievements undoubtedly matched and probably exceeded those of many of the club's male members, but she was a woman, therefore ineligible. This rebuff spurred her into campaigning for the abolition of what was widely regarded as an antiquated rule. The 21st century was fast approaching and equality was the norm in most other walks of life. Finally, in 1999, Hay-Ho Flint was chosen to be one of the first 10 female members of the MCC. The others included Audrey Collins, former president of the Women's Cricket Association, who began playing in the 1930s and continued for more than 40 years. A women's team was formed and played its first match a few months later. At last, the women's sport stood on an equal footing with the men's. In the words of Tory Levy, then president of the MCC, we could not claim to be a great cricket club unless we had a women's team and women members. Find meaning. Bastion, a place or group of people that protects the traditions, principles and standards of an activity. Pioneered, developed, discredited, dishonor, abolition, topping, entangled, caught in, successors, inheritor. Exercises. Creative expression. Tell your story. Equality, equity. Take into account what was said about fair play and gender equality. Do you think men and women should take part in the same sports? If so, should they compete against each other? Cross-curricular connect. Learning by doing. Create a lifestyle based on given points for both genders. Gender equality index. Work, participation, segregation, quality of work. Money, financial resources, economic situation. Knowledge, attainment, segregation, lifelong learning. Time, economic activities, care activities, social activities. Power, political, social, economic. Health, status, behavior, access. Critical thinking. Let's play a game. What physical exercise do you do to keep yourself fit? Which sports do you play in school? What sports do you enjoy the best? Do you play it regularly or are you just a fan? Choose from the questions above and use them as a guide to present a talk about a sport to a small group. 1. Give your talk an interesting title. 2. Begin by giving a brief introduction to your talk. 3. Remember to give details or reasons. Logical thinking. Write about 450 words explaining why you think sports is important to young people. Exercise time. Answer the following questions. Number 1. Where was women's cricket first played? Answer. The first women's cricket was played on 26 July 1745 in Yorkshire, named the White Heather Club. 2. What is ungrammatical about the remark quoted in the chapter? Can you think of a possible reason for this apparent mistake? Answer. Do it yourself. 3. Who was the pioneer of round-arm bowling? Answer. According to legend, it was a woman, Christina Wills, who pioneered round-arm bowling, which evolved into the now familiar overarm technique because her hand entangled in her skirt when she bowled underarm. Number 4. Write down 2 similarities and 2 differences between Lily Paulette Harris and Rachel Hayhoe Flint? Answer. Two similarities between Lily Pollard, Harris and Rachel Hayhoe Flint, that is, they both applied to join the MCC and they both are cricketer. The difference between them is, as a captain, Lily Pollard led her team to many victories in her tragically short career. She died of tuberculosis at the age of 23 in 1897. Rachel Hayhoe Flint is one of the most famous female cricketers of the modern era. Is Rachel Hayhoe Flint. She played for the England women's cricket team in the 1970s, captained by Hayhoe Flint. 5. Make a timeline for women's cricket, naming at least 5 key events. Answer. Do it yourself. Decide whether the blanks in the following sentences should be filled with the definite article the indefinite article a or an, or be left unfilled. Put a cross in the blank if it should be left unfilled. 1. Have you found the book that you were looking for yet? 2. No, I don't want milk in my tea, thank you. 3. Is there a pen that I could borrow? 4. Rani arrived today on a 10:30 flight from Sri Lanka. 5. Do you eat this dish with the rice or with a bread? 6. She's eating her soup with a wrong spoon. 7. To make this dish, you will need an onion, a clove of garlic, 250 grams of the minced lamb, and 100 millimeters of the water. 8. Millie wants to study the geography at the university. 9. To reduce the risk of an accident, the high visibility clothing should be worn at all times. 10. It takes a skill and patience to create a complex work of art. Take the right options. 1. Cricket is traditionally called 1. The game of men, 2. The game of women, 3. The game of gentlemen. Answer. 3. The game of gentlemen. 2. NCC stands for 1. Malaysia Cricket Club, 2. Marylebone Cricket Club, 3. Manchester Cricket Club. Answer. 2. Marylebone Cricket Club. 3. Cricket had been played with great enthusiasm by women since the 1. 18th century, 2. 19th century, 3. 20th century. Answer. 1. 18th century. 4. In 1991, Hayhoe Flint applied to join the 1. ICC, 2. BCCI, 3. MCC. Answer. MCC. 5. Finally, Hayhoe Flint was chosen to be one of the first 10 female members of the MCC in 1. 1985, 2. 1989, 3. 1991. Answer. 3. 1991. Match each word with the sentences that shows its meaning. 1. Unprofessional. The entire team was fined for misconduct and for not keeping to the standards of fair play in the game. 2. Unmarried. She devoted her life to the sport and remained single for all her life. 3. Inequality. In the early years, male and female players were not given the same amount of recognition and acceptance. 4. Inactive. Unlike her teammates, she retired and no longer participated in any of the events. 5. Disengaged. The decision makers were detached from the fans and did not know what they wanted. 6. Impartial. The referee was fair to the both teams.